I don't know any of these people. I barely know you. And y'all gonna feed me, take me out to the middle of nowhere. I really went into the woods like an idiot.
I'm back out fresh on the scene. Franchise best on the team. Blue faces busting out the scene. New life is something like a dream. Back out fresh on the scene. Franchise best on the team. Blue faces busting out the scene. New life is something like a dream.
So what is good, YouTube? It is 𝕮𝖚𝖙 and I'm here today with a video. So I mentioned on Twitter, y'all, I've been thinking about telling a story time finally about the time that I accidentally pretty much almost joined a cult and then got kicked out. And y'all went crazy on Twitter. Y'all definitely wanted to hear this story. I am so nervous right now. That's how y'all know I love you, because I'm going to get into this story. I have waited years to tell this because I wanted it to kind of like be behind me, and now I'm like 3,000 miles away from where this all happened, so I feel comfortable telling the story now. But if you want to hear the story, stay tuned, and also don't forget to follow me on TikTok at @𝕮𝖚𝖙. All right, so for this video I wanted to just get into the general definition of what makes a cult, okay? The word cult originates from the ancient Latin word cultus, meaning worship, described as a new movement appealing to an atypical or vulnerable percentage of the population. The group often has a charismatic founder or small leadership that is given permission to have additional control over the lives of their followers and their beliefs. There are a lot of subliminal, I guess, parallels between cult grooming and grooming for an abusive relationship or domestic violence. That's one of the biggest things I've noticed. But we're gonna get into that. So I wanna make a quick disclaimer. Most people that are in a cult, and they're in a cult deep, don't realize they're in a cult, because I know there's a chance this might get back to the people from this story. If anybody sees this, you know, you don't have to contact me. There needs to be no clarity, none of that. Like, I'm completely beyond this story now. And another part of my disclaimer is what's one person's cult might be another person's form of like extreme or disciplined religion. But the purpose of this video, aside from just pure entertainment, is to also help younger viewers or people who are in school right now, or anybody who might be vulnerable, learn kind of warning signs or red flags so they can avoid the situations that I was put in unknowingly. Most things that are beautiful and helpful in life or rewarding don't come rushed. You won't have to be solicited or persuaded or manipulated or pressured for something that's beautiful. It will be patient, it will be kind, it will take its time, it will have compassion and understanding, especially when it comes to religion. So that will be probably one of the first red flags, is if a group wants to rush you in any way, is soliciting or pressuring you to join immediately. That should be a red flag. So now let's get into the background of this story. So this all happened my sophomore year of college. Sophomore year is when all the money dried up. Freshman year, you come in confident. Even if you don't have a full scholarship, you know what's going on financially. You might have a going away party or something, and people might give you those little cards with a little cash money to get you started in college. Sophomore year is the year when all that goes away. You are officially in college now. You are an adult, and all the sympathy, all that stuff has run completely dry. You are really on your own in these streets. So I'll say for my sophomore year, I was particularly vulnerable because, number one, I was away from family. There were some like hardships going on with family at the time. I also was in the midst of one of my only, in my entire life, my only pre-falling out with a roommate. I've never had a bad roommate situation except for this 1 year, which that could be a whole nother like 3-part video series in and of itself. But yeah, I was having difficulties with a roommate, and y'all know when the home is not happy, it's a mess. Long story short, with the roommate situation, I was getting kicked out that room regularly because the person was dating somebody. So y'all can imagine how stressful that was. Also, as I mentioned, money was kind of becoming an issue, so I had to get some campus jobs and things like that, and I was also working retail. So your girl was booked, she was busy, she was stressed. I was also running this YouTube, but YouTube of course always has been fun, so it wasn't really like, oh god, I have to make YouTube. No, like YouTube was actually my escape during this time period. So yeah, and then my love life was not in shambles. It was getting to a really stable place. So I feel like in all chaos there's like at least one stable place going on. But yeah, so this all took place my sophomore year of school. This quote from an article from The Guardian. It says, although cults recruit people of all ages, students who are intellectually or spiritually curious are the prime target. Also, there's a lot of other reasons why students make the perfect, well, I wouldn't say perfect, but like, you know, the prime target for cults. Research has shown that people who are the most susceptible to recruitment are stressed, emotionally vulnerable, have a tenuous or no relationship with their family or connections to their family, or are living in adverse socioeconomic conditions. Does that not spell college student to you, y'all? Like, literally, like, number one, stressed. You're stressed academically, you're stressed financially, you're stressed with everything in college, low-key. Emotionally vulnerable. Yeah, you're literally, the rug is pulled out from you when you get to like your freshman year and sophomore year of college. Everything you once knew is totally different, and you're really like in this on your own, so you're emotionally vulnerable. And for me, again, I was going through a lot of stuff and a lot of changes, so I was particularly emotionally vulnerable at this time, having tension or no relationship with the family. I wasn't having like extreme tension, but I was having stuff going on with family at the time. And on top of that, this is for all college students. Even if you have a great relationship with your family, which I personally do and have had since then for a long time, basically when you live on campus and all that, you're becoming physically separated from your family unit, if that makes sense. So that breaks those connections and those bonds, making you an easier target for this kind of stuff. And are living in adverse socioeconomic conditions. College students be broke, okay? And I know I'm gonna get comments like this already where people are gonna be like, man, when those organizations came up to me in school, girl, I didn't give them 2 seconds, da-da-da-da, whoop-de-whoop. Sit, like, we're here. We're here. I always will say this, do not knock a position you have not played or been in, because you can be in that position. You never know. Life is unpredictable that way. This was not one of those scenarios where people come up to you in the student center and I just went off with them. No. I've had, before this even started, I had numerous groups come up to me in the commons during, well, the commons was like at my school, like the student center, if you will. It's where they had food, they had like the bookstore, all that good stuff, and then a giant cafe area. So yeah, I had people come up to me in the commons all the time. Even the mother god people that y'all be hearing about in all those news stories, they came up to me multiple times. Books, you name it, any place on campus, I have been stopped. Trust me, y'all, I wasn't that naive where I was just like running off with anybody, though that happens a lot. Though this is a popular recruitment tool, most people are recruited into cults by a friend, coworker, or family member. So that's where we get into how I got recruited. Okay, I know this might seem like a lot of pre-information, but all this stuff is important and it definitely plays in. So being that this was a really lonely time, a lonely year, I was working a lot, so I didn't have as much time for friendship because, you know, I was running off to a retail job, getting back to my dorm at like 10 o'clock at night, where I was in the study rooms at like 11 till 2 in the morning, walking alone to my office job at like 6:37 in the morning. Like, I was not sleeping, I was on the go. So who is one person that I would automatically talk to often when I don't have time for friends? My roommate and I are getting into it and barely sleeping. My RA. So most colleges, if you're not in college or you just don't know this, like most colleges have someone that watches the floor. They're called a resident advisor. Some schools have different names for them, but basically the student advisor on your floor. So I quickly became good acquaintances with the resident advisor on my floor, and it still feels weird telling this story because he was a really cool guy. Like, and that's how I'm gonna feel about just about everyone in this story. Deep down, it was like they were all cool people, but this energy was just not okay. It wasn't until when I was about to do this story, I was like scared because I was like, would the word cult offend this religious group? And I did some reading and I went article after article after article, and every single one validated every feeling that I was having, y'all. This RA was extremely nice, and I just chalked it up to that being their personality, like overly nice. Everywhere I was, he was magically there. I might express an interest in one thing and then suddenly he's at that thing. Like, he was just always around. I'm not saying he was following me or anything. It could have been pure coincidence, but I would be in a study room alone. He'd walk in the study room and start talking or sit down or what have you. And as RAs, you're encouraged to make these connections with your residents. I actually became an RA later in college, but I know for a fact when you have as many residents as we do, it's almost impossible to have that much encountering with one resident, you know what I mean? He just seemed extremely intrigued by my life, and these things all sound so weird to say, but that's how these groomings and things happen with relationships with cult. You literally feel weird talking about the warning signs and like the recruitment and the grooming, because these all can come off as very normal things where you're just like, no. So, but I think it's because of how subtle it is that people just brush it off and think no. So of course I'm brushing this off. I'm like, he's just really nice. He's just really passionate. He just really cares. But he would ask about my family situation. He would ask about my roommate situation. He was asking about just all aspects of my life, was finding out what I was interested in, and you know, found out that I also played one of the same instruments he played, and then suddenly he would be playing the instrument with his door open while I'm like coming back from like classes and stuff like that. It would just all seem really coincidental in the timing. But I actually looked at an article to find out that one of the first steps after spotting a recruit in getting them to actually join a cult is called love bombing. And love bombing is when you literally shower this person who is emotionally vulnerable and feels kind of alone and is basically finding their identity, as most new college students are, and you just validate the shit out of them. Like, you make them feel like they are just the greatest thing on earth. You flatter them, you admire them, you show them affection, you validate them, and that's what I was feeling like. I felt like my RA was talking to me more than my siblings, like, you know what I'm saying? And that seems weird, but because of the job title it didn't. But in all honesty, had these behaviors been anywhere but in that job title, I think it would have been really odd. But we went through several weeks of just him checking in about my life and just like learning a lot of information about me. And I noticed in that time period I didn't learn very much about him at all, except for one thing, and that was that he, you know, would read the Bible from time to time. So I remember one day he just came out of nowhere and asked me like, hey, do you know what you're doing this weekend? Or this, I think it was either like a long extended weekend. I can't remember if it was a break or a long weekend. Y'all gotta remember, this was like a couple years ago. Long story short, he invited me to this retreat. And then of course I was in a very open place. I was open to religion, spirituality. I was open to finding a church. I was open to a lot of things. You know, I'm in a new city, I'm in college, I'm going through a rough time, and I really think that's what made me prime for this, because I was a lot more open than I usually would be, and I think I would have vetted a little bit more. But due to this acquaintanceship and the love bombing that had happened for weeks and weeks before then, I felt comfortable going to the retreat. I wouldn't say I felt comfortable, actually. I would say that I tried to get out of it. If I'm gonna be real with y'all, I tried to get out of it, but then every reason I had not to go, it's like he had a counter reason. Okay, so I literally was like, oh, I might have homework to do. We have desks there. There's gonna be plenty of time to do work and study. You know, don't really feel like I know as much as I should to go on a retreat. Oh, we'll teach you everything you need to know. Honestly, I get a little weirded out about retreats because it might be just a little too church heavy, like a little too, you know what I mean? And it's like, no, it's not even like that. It's gonna be dancing, fun, unlimited food. It's gonna be a great time, really laid back. It's not like that at all. Y'all, I was getting sold dreams, okay? And then me being a bored, broke, overworked, and stressed college student who didn't particularly with her roommate at the time was just like, unlimited food, dancing, people my age, and did they say free food? This is one of my weaknesses. I will go almost anywhere where there is free food. I need to get better at this, but I'm sorry, y'all. Like, this is just So I reluctantly agreed to go. Here's another thing that was a little odd. The retreat was coming up immediately. Like I got abrupt notice about it, and then I also found out that it was happening kind of abruptly, so like I didn't have a lot of time to back out either. It was very spur of the moment. And then on top of that, I also said, hey, I know retreats cost money, so I was like, you know, I don't really have that right now. I'm trying to save up for school and books and all that. He was like, oh no, don't worry about it, you don't have to pay. That was another red flag, low-key, because it's just like, okay, I don't know any of these people, I barely know you, and y'all gonna feed me, take me out to the middle of nowhere and pay for everything? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I'm sorry, it was just a little odd to me. I come from an area where like things have to be earned, okay? It's just point blank how it is. And so I was like, maybe they're just really generous. And this is something I also want to share with you guys that I noticed as a kind of recurring theme. A cult entry process is extremely expedited. That happens quickly. You are in and out, no paperwork, nothing. You are in. But getting out is literally very difficult once you get pretty deep in, right? Whereas with a religious group, getting in and everything might be actually a very patient and slow process and a gradual introduction, you know what I'm saying? So like, I think that was one of the key differences I noticed here. Everything was so quick, and this kind of coincides with, again, like the relationship grooming. Everything is very charming and quick, you know what I'm saying? So now I have, from the phases of entering a cult, phase 2. Y'all, I was literally walking, I was going through the freaking guide. Like, I was walking right into the trap. I was following the breadcrumbs. That's literally what was happening here, y'all. Here is phase 2 is isolation, okay? So once, I'm gonna read this entire paragraph so y'all can just really see that I really went into the woods like an idiot. But here we gonna go. Once they've enticed the recruit with approval or the promise of some fulfilling understanding of the universe or themselves, that's what I was promised during this thing. I was promised free food, I was promised dancing, I was promised like spiritual healing and a greater understanding of self and inner peace when I get home. I was promised all types of stuff. Soul dreams, like I said. And I was only, what, like 19 at this time? Basically, once they've been promised all that, cultists will then work to isolate the recruit quickly, right? So as soon as I said I would consider going on this retreat, everything started moving like so fast. Weekend retreat, a weekend retreat. So when I was about to like reconsider making this video, like was it a cult, bruh? And then this is the first thing I see, and I know a lot of religious groups still do retreats. That's fine, y'all. I've been to church a lot in my life. I've been to multiple kinds of religious gatherings. I've been to like temples. I've been around the block religiously a little bit, you know? So it usually takes form of a weekend retreat where the recruit is immersed in the cult's ideology over the course of a few days. Not only are the recruits physically isolated from friends and family members who might otherwise provide a reality check, which in this case, I think only 2 people knew I was going here, but cults often isolate recruits from outside information. Newspapers, books, TV, and web access are all censored, ensuring that only reality the recruit gets is from the experience presented by the cult. Yup. This is literally like I'm literally reading my experience summarized verbatim. Okay, well, let me tell you. So we load up into, I can't remember if we took vans or cars. Again, this was a while ago, but we load up into transportation. I'm pretty sure we carpooled. And then we get to the destination, which is literally in the middle of nowhere. I kid you not, y'all. We were staying in bunk bed cabins by a lake in the middle of nowhere with very limited reception. I had to fight somebody, not literally, but I felt like it was like pulling teeth and finding somebody to get the Wi-Fi. And the only way I was able to get the Wi-Fi was when I told them that I had homework assignments that required the internet. Again, let me point out, when I arrived, everyone seemed nice. Like, am I a traumatized youth that bothers me like that? But it's not just nice. It's like, you ever had somebody try to sell you something at a kiosk in the mall? It was that kind of nice. It's like, what are you hiding nice? Like, who are you really nice? Like, if you stub your toe right now, will you still be this fucking happy? Like, y'all are so this makes me seem so negative in contrast, but it's just like the extreme of niceness, if that makes sense. Anyway, so everybody seemed really nice when I first got there. So let's talk about the first ceremony when I get there. We put our stuff down, all that, and then our first ceremony is in this room where everybody's just sitting in chairs, stage, and then they get into reciting scriptures and singing. Now, how do I go into this? And as I've said, I have been to many churches, and they have been the most, like, they moving, y'all know what I mean, like, y'all just feel that energy, just like yes, and you leave and you feel good. I felt the opposite during this. I think one of the biggest things that also is a red flag with cult stuff is a general feeling of uneasiness, and it makes you confused because it's like everything in my environment going on right now is technically good, so why do I feel so uneasy and mildly unsafe and out of place, right? So when they started singing, that's the moment I realized I felt like an other. I felt so othered, and I'm sitting here open, vulnerable, like open-minded, if you know what I'm saying, and I felt so uncomfortable because the singing wasn't you know, the yes Jesus loves me. It wasn't none of the jams, okay, the things that we know that are really like will get you in the spirit. There's no good way to say this, y'all. It was very corny. Oh my gosh. There's no better way to say that. It was very like, I was gonna say ukulele but ukulele would have even been better. It was just one guitar and I love God and I love God and guitar, and it was like for hours. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm just sitting there like,
one more time, kids.
I love God.
Hurrah.
And yes, he's great.
Woo.
Yeah, you should too.
Woo.
I love God.
He's great.
Yeah, I love God.
Another thing is, since everything was constantly done in group dynamics, like you never had alone time there except to shower. I don't recall ever having any alone time during this entire retreat. You feel this intense feeling of peer pressure the entire time. I'm the only person not enthralled in everything that's going on right now, because I'm just like, are y'all serious? Y'all gotta tell me y'all know what I mean, because I don't want to sound wild, because you know we are still overlapping religion with a story time, but it was different. It was very different. That's all I can say. Another thing is that the schedule from the moment we arrived was packed every single day, from worship in the morning, breakfast, prayer, singing, prayer, confessions, prayer. It was just back to back. Honestly, another thing that was a little strange that I don't think I have pointed out yet is the fact that, remember how I mentioned the nice thing? Everybody never stopped smiling. And here's another thing I forgot to mention too. There was only like 2 or 3 of us that were actually new to the church on this entire retreat, right? So the entire time I couldn't help having this internal feeling. This is gonna sound really vain to say, but it felt like the entire retreat was planned for us alone, and it was planned, and I don't even feel like it was planned for me. I just felt like this retreat is planned for recruits, like to have a small group of recruits come and kind of get the brain wash, you know? And it's like in the aspect of them never stopping smiling, it was like the entire retreat I was constantly being sold something the entire time. It was just like, this is also a part of love bombing. From what I have finally learned, it's like we are selling you this entire lifestyle. We told you we were gonna cure everything that you had going on and give you peace, so we have to embody that, but to the extreme. It's like I really sometimes want to just like take a paper ball and chuck it at somebody just to see if like, are you human? Like, because they would never stop smiling the entire time. Like, this is another red flag, okay? Now we're getting into like maybe like day 2, okay? We had to do group sessions, and what group sessions were was a pre-picked group. We didn't pick the groups, where you had to go sit down and talk in a circle. And there was a lot of people at this retreat, and in the circle, it was all women, And so they made it feel like real gal pal, like yeah, we're in this together, girl power. And so the leader's wife of the church, well, they both kind of led the church. So what are we going to call her? We'll call her Crystal. The leader, Crystal, happened to be in my group. Now, what are the chances we're breaking into all these small groups that the new girl with promise for the church gets paired in the group with the leader of the church? Now that's not pressure. So immediately everybody begins sharing these deep, dark sins, and they're going around in a circle. So again, yet again, I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? But I'm not gonna lie, when this all was happening, I was like, oh, okay, like finally something that's down to earth, something that I was like, okay, I can get with this. Like, I want to hear the human things that y'all have been through and how y'all have worked through them and what your process has been like. And as soon as they were starting, that's when I started to kind of, shoulders started to drop a little bit, deep breaths were taken. I felt like finally we were getting somewhere. Like, okay, I was a little iffy on y'all. Y'all almost had me about to go try to find an Uber, but you know, this is something. And then Crystal starts speaking and she talks about this awful time where she was just doing terrible things, and how it was just she is so ashamed of it, and how, like, you know, she had to basically apologize to God and all these different things. Y'all, not to put nobody business out there, okay? The awful terrible thing that she was doing was self-pleasure. I'm so serious. I could not, as soon as that was said, I just shut down internally. I was like, I'm sorry, as somebody who has grown up around some stuff and seen some stuff and been through some stuff and have friends and family who've seen and been through some stuff, and that is like the worst thing you did, and I don't even think there's nothing wrong with that. I was like, y'all almost had me, but here, 10 steps back, I gotta get out of here. I have got to get out of here. So then they get to me, and everybody's eyes are just like, I don't know what to say. I was like, y'all want a laundry list? Is this never have I ever? Because then I really have to think. I'm like, and then they're like, no, you can share anything. Like, this is your time. Y'all, in what human world or realm is someone going to know people for less than 24 hours? I mean, yeah, sometimes you have a venting session to strangers, but that's by choice. You know what I mean? Like, you choose to vent to a stranger when you feel overwhelmed, or, you know what I mean, the timing is right. You don't get put in a scenario where everyone probably shares the same thing every daggone retreat, and you the one new person in the circle, and all eyes are on you to tell some deep dark secret. Like, I don't know y'all. Y'all are complete strangers to me. I don't know who you know. I don't know who y'all associated with. Like, I was not comfortable at all. So I kind of had to wing it a little bit. But here's the thing, I should have been able to say, hey guys, I'm not comfortable sharing anything right now, and been on my way. But the fact that I was already feeling pressured to not say that just should tell you how much that the manipulation was already beginning to work. The fact that I didn't feel comfortable telling an entire group of strangers that I wasn't going to divulge my deepest, darkest secrets to them on the spot after knowing them for 24 hours really kind of teasing on the fact that something was wrong. Now here's one of the lights that came out of this whole story. This girl arrives, and we're going to call her Tracy. How about that? So Tracy arrives a day or two late to the retreat, and she is from where I'm from. She is cool as shit, y'all. She was so cool. She was down to earth, and I'm like, finally a normal person. It's sad that I had to say that, but I really was feeling like I was counting down the hours till I had to leave, because I just wanted to go back to society. Like, I think that's the thing. I was hyper aware that what was going on was not normal. Okay, so she arrives, and then I don't know, we just gravitate towards each other and we start talking. And also Tracy is one of my bestest friends to this day, so that's why I said this is something good that has come out of this. And we have bounced these stories off of each other, and I found out like, yo, I was not crazy. Like, this was a kind of weird organization. But she arrives, and then I'm talking about how like I'm so happy that I was like, you're from such and such. She's like, yeah girl, da da da, you're really cool. And we just was hitting it off, and I'm like, I am so glad you're here, because honestly I was feeling a little. And she's like, yeah, I know. And so we were just bonding. And then comes the campfire. The campfire, they were singing again around a campfire for about 2 hours, and just sitting there like, I am ready to go. I am ready to get up and run. But we are in the woods. Why am I in the woods right now? I was in the woods for no reason, and it was still chilly. I don't know. I was just second guessing this entire experience. Plus side is that I gained a lifelong friend from this. Now we get to the final day, baptism. I found out that everyone, this isn't super uncommon, but it was new to me because I had never heard this terminology before. I might sound like a newbie, but whatever. They were doing baptisms, and every person that got baptized became a disciple. Something about the word, it just, I don't know why, it just rubbed me the wrong way. And I know that's a common term, like, y'all don't have to tell me. I know there's some churches that really use that terminology, but you get baptized and become a disciple of the church. And there was a lot, like, I think there was about 2 people that were getting baptized that day. And the entire time, like I said, this entire weekend felt like a timeshare pitch. Like, they were constantly selling me on this organization. Like, they didn't think I realized they were selling me, but they were selling me. And it was working, to be honest. The peer pressure was working. But they baptized people, and the entire time I'm getting nudged like, that's gonna be you soon, huh? And I'm just like, when did I ever say that? I didn't say that. Did I say that? Did I tell somebody? That's why the whole retreat was by a river, because they were doing mass baptisms and stuff like that. So long story short, I was feeling pretty uncomfortable with the whole thing. But because I was so uncomfortable, I felt like there was no way out. And I think that's what was one of the most alarming things. I didn't know how to tell these people no. Like, I really didn't. And I'm one of those people that's usually pretty firm, or I'll be nice about stuff, but I'll still be able to be like, nah, I'm good, y'all. I did not know how to tell them no. So when we get back from the retreat, everything just rolls into motion. The ball gets rolling on everything. I'm talking about, I'm getting invited to movie nights and all these things that sound kind of fun, right? But I'm seeing everyone from this group just about every day on campus. Every day on campus. Y'all, they didn't go to my school. They did not go to my school. Some of them graduated college altogether. Yet I would see them every day on campus, and it's just like, they would kind of just bump into me and be like, hey! And I'm like, what? Once I found out they didn't go to my school, then I was like, but here's another thing. A few of them lied. Technically, they tell the truth, but they also lied about the fact that they were in college. Does that make sense? So they would try to relate to me, and I think that's another thing. To get me recruited, a lot of people would lie to relate to me. And I'm like, that's kind of wrong. Like, for example, they'd say, oh yeah, I go here. And then I would later find out, oh wait, you don't go there currently. You graduated and now you're doing this. So like, you know what I'm saying? It's just small things. Like, anybody that goes to college knows that getting out of college is it's a lot. It's hard to get out of college and graduate, especially on time. So when you graduate, it's immediately like, yeah, I used to go there. It's not normal to be like, I go there. Okay, so seeing them every day was a bit strange, and then I was getting bombarded with like all these activities. Mind you, I told you I was working and doing all this other stuff, and it's like every time I would say I couldn't go to something, there was this disappointment, like I was letting them down in some way. And now we're gonna get to the point of how I almost got kicked out, because at this point I'm technically in. Technically, I am having a standing weekly Bible study appointment with them, where we would sit in a booth in the commons upstairs away from everybody, and we would do a guided Bible study with the leader of the church and another member who seems to be one of their top recruiters, because they've recruited a lot of people since I got kicked out. Also, I'd like to point out that a week or 2 after the retreat and I solidified those Bible study appointments with the girls and everything, it's like my RA kind of backed off, if that makes any sense. So like, they were still nice, but not as hey. It was more like, hey, how you doing? You know what I mean? Like, we're like, they became laid back. So I'm like, oh my God. Now when I'm reflecting, I'm like, he wasn't selling me anymore because I was already on the conveyor belt about to like go to the, you know, more red flags. They talked about salvation a lot. So when talking about salvation in terms of religion, it's usually just the saving of one's soul in terms of sin and its consequences. However, there was a catch when it came to this organization, that I could only receive salvation through them. They talked down on other organizations and churches. I found out that they had an issue with members of their church dating people outside of the church, especially if you were baptized in that church. They felt like it was almost cross-contamination if you had friends or dated anyone outside of the church, unless you were explicitly trying to recruit them. What? Your girl not allowed to have friends of other churches? Most of my friends have a variety of religions, so that's already going to be an issue. And even a lot of my friends with the same religion don't go to the same church. So I'm like, how is this going to work, sis? Like, how? I remember the fateful day that I got dropped very vividly. One last thing to insert too. There was a superiority complex where I had even asked at one point, like, hey, why is it not okay to have people date somebody that's the same religion that goes to a different church? And they insinuated that people who went to different churches might not be taught properly, meaning that they were still damned basically for all of eternity, and the only way to true salvation was through their church. Basically an elitist mindset, which is very, very, very big on the red flag scale for cults. Big red flag. So fast forwarding to how I got kicked out. I had a crap ton of jobs when all this was going on, and I specifically remember there was one Bible study day where basically told them once we got there, they were like, did you do the readings for the Bible study? And mind you, the readings were like pretty lengthy, and it was like a section you'd have to read and then come in. And I said, hey y'all, like I have, you know, an extreme workload this past week. I had exams, I have you know, all these different jobs, and this particular week I wasn't able to read, so can we actually read that piece together and go over it while we're here? We're here for an hour. They would do this for an hour. So I'm like, all right. And it'd be one-on-one. Like, it was serious grooming, y'all. So then the hour would happen, and I'm like, bro, they got so irritated when I told them that I didn't do the reading. This is not a class. I just didn't understand that. Like, to me, it just seemed very logical. Like, hey, this girl has like 4 jobs and she's a full-time student, and like she just didn't have the time. And it was almost like they questioned my commitment to everything. They reluctantly kind of went through the text with me, were real dry, real irritated about everything. Then the next week, I come back during the same time for our Bible study. I did the readings this time. And again, because what was that? Peer pressure. That was a fear tactic. That was a control and manipulation tactic to guilt trip me for not reading a Bible verse. Like, what? Mind you, I have all these jobs and homework, and I cut out the specific time because they thought it was important, and I thought it would be good too. So I was like, bruh, I cut out this time chunk for them. I show up after my job, and that job was in the same building we would meet in. I walk down the steps, I sit down at the booth. They ain't there. They ain't show up. 20 minutes passed, they ain't show up. So I'm texting them, no reply. I'm calling them, no reply. Did I miss something? I went and checked to see maybe I'm here on the wrong day. I don't be sleeping much, so maybe it's just like a lack of sleep issue. That wasn't it either, y'all. Finally, after our time slot completely passes, one of the girls, the chief recruiter, texts me back and is like,
yeah, we're actually at another school right now.
And just for FYI, the other school was Towson, if you're in the Baltimore area. And I'm like, why? We have an appointment today, right? And they're like,
we do.
Exactly. So, and she was like, oh, very important piece of information. During that last session, they mentioned getting baptized to me and how soon I would like to schedule my baptism. I have never in one day since all this began, when my RA came up to me, discussed baptism. Not one day. because I didn't know these people very well, and I was still on an exploration journey just to see if this was even the right choice for me. That's why I wanted to do the studies. Like, the studies was the only thing I really wanted to do, to read and learn and do certain things. I was like, I don't know when I'm gonna do the baptism or if I'm going to do it. Right now, I would just like to focus on reading and learning and getting as much information as possible to guide me on my spiritual journey, so I can, like, you know what I mean? Just make well-informed decisions. And that probably is what set them off, because the very next meeting they were like,
yeah, since you don't know when you will get baptized, we really just don't want to waste our valuable time.
Does that sound religious to y'all? Like, literally the Dalai Lama was talking about cultivating love, compassion, all these different things, healing. They literally told me I was wasting their time because I didn't want to get baptized after knowing y'all for a few weeks. Literally a few weeks. That was one of the last times I actually physically texted them. And then I ran into them in the comments a few times when they were soliciting, and then I really had a, like, brain moment and realized I think these girls actually solicited me before in the comments, and I turned them down, and then my RA got me to go to the retreat with the same group of people. Does that make sense? So I saw them in the comments, and they, for like a little while, they would just like look the other way when I was walking, y'all. Like, I literally got kicked. I was not good enough for a cult, y'all. Like, this is just, they just started blatantly ignoring me for a while, and I'd be like, hey y'all, and then
did you hear something?
like, I'm like, y'all cold, dang, they are cold. But yeah, basically that's how things started going. And then every once in a blue moon for the rest of that semester, I would see Crystal, and she would be like looking at me like I was damned, or like I was doomed or about to perish, and just like this look of pity, like,
Hey Bree, how are you doing right now?
like, I felt like I was talking to Iyanla Van Zant, the way she was like, and she really, I knew she expected me to say that I was going through it all, and I actually low-key was, but I was like, did they put a curse on me? Did they? Man, I'm gonna need y'all to pray on me, because I don't know, they might have put a curse on me low-key, because that following year was a little crazy. Like, there was a lot of death and crazy stuff. They might have put a damn hex on me, y'all. Pray on this video. But needless to say, I would tell her every time, like, oh, I would just focus on purely the blessings and beautiful things, which you guys have been one of the most beautiful things. I would be like, yeah, I finally got the opportunity of a lifetime. I'm, you know, traveling here. My channel is doing well. I got hired for this and blah, blah, blah. And y'all, I did that on purpose. I would tell all the beautiful things, and a normal person or a person that's genuinely happy for you will be genuinely happy for you. But the leaders and everybody be like,
oh, okay. Like,
they was mad that they spelling worked. They just was not rocking when I would tell them good things were happening. And another girl on my floor who I was actually really cool with, she ended up being in the next round of inductions into that church. And when I say I haven't seen or spoken to that girl since, I'm talking about like, she disappeared off the face of the planet. I saw one baptism picture, and then she just not disappeared as in like kidnapped, but like I haven't seen her post any pictures pretty much with anyone outside of her family immediately and the church at all. Like, period, boo, period. And so what reminded me of this story is actually one of the guys from the church. I was coming from one of my best friend's houses, and literally over this past winter, I got in the car with an Uber driver, and I knew he looked familiar. And I had a good feeling when I saw him, like, not, how to put this, like, good feeling as though, like, oh, you're really a familiar face and I don't associate bad with you, but I still feel uneasy. And I couldn't point out, like, why do I feel uneasy about him, though I don't feel like I have bad memories about this person. And then he slowly worked into the conversation, like, do you still go to the church? And I was like, no. I was like, I got kicked out. And he was just like, really? That's another thing. The men in this organization seem to be kind of like oblivious to everything going on, but the women knew, okay? My lifelong friend Tracy, literally, sis went through it all. They kicked her out because of how her Instagram pictures were, like if she would wear a crop top. And I was like, just the fact that a religious organization has people literally narking and policing their members' Instagrams and reporting it back to the higher ups to get you kicked out, or saying that because you're dating someone that's not in this church you get kicked out, is just insane. So yeah, that is the story of how I got introduced into a cult and kicked out of the cult. Everyone that I look at that's been a long time like inductee, I haven't seen them post pictures with anybody but people in that church. So yeah. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this story. It's really late in the morning right now, so I'm about to go to sleep. But yeah, I apologize if it was a little all over the place. I was super nervous to tell this story, but that just goes to show like how much I was actually groomed during this process, because I felt like a feeling of like guilt or shame. But then when I really like refer this story to other people and I finally opened up to family about this experience, it just be like, dang, I was really in the middle. I was out here, y'all. I was in the woods for days with no cell service. Like anything could have happened. So I hope y'all take this as a learning lesson from me. I'm not saying never go on a religious retreat, but honestly, if anybody tries to expedite your religious growth, run for the hills, okay? Nobody who loves and cares about you is going to force you to do anything you don't want to do. They're not gonna make you feel bad for common human errors. They're not going to police you. They're going to accept you and have compassion. So I feel like it was God that they actually kicked me out, because I don't know, y'all, I probably would have been knee deep in that thing. Like I was here with a clipboard recruiting people. It's not funny. I know there's people that really are going through this today, but I'm sorry, like I think a lot of people, not a lot, there's been a select group of people, even on the R. Kelly video, who feel that I'm like mocking serious issues. And those of you who know me know I'm very big on advocacy and I'm really into humanitarian work. Like my real life promotes actual healing and honesty, but humor is my coping mechanism. And if anybody doesn't understand that, then I don't think you should watch this channel, because like that is the biggest way, and especially it's a part of Black culture. Like I feel like we can make a joke out of anything because that's how we've managed to cope for the last few centuries of really tough, hard things. So if y'all ever see me out here and I'm cracking jokes, it is a coping mechanism. It is not because I am making light of anything. It's just literally like, bruh, if we don't laugh, then what we gonna do? We gonna keep crying? Like I'd rather laugh than cry. But needless to say, I'm just happy that I'm out of this experience, and I am so happy that you guys are watching my channel right now. Thank you so much for watching this story time. If you want to hear another story time, request some below or just topics below, and I will literally go through my old diaries and dig in my past. Again, I am not the type to fake a story time for views or anything like that. If I was, I'd probably have like 40 on my channel. But yeah, y'all, I really do have some wild life stories, and sometimes it takes a regular life event like that Uber ride to trigger the story, because honestly that whole thing I suppressed so deep in my subconscious memory, because I literally, up until almost my senior year of school, I'd seen the same recruiters and that same group of people coming into my school regularly, and over time they would say a casual hey to me after everything neutralized, but overall they completely disregarded me ever since that Bible study incident. So I just kind of like pushed it to the back of my head, and I had a lot of other stuff to think about. So needless to say, anyway, I'm gonna stop blabbing on y'all. I love y'all. Peace out, gang. I'll see you in the next video. And if you made it to the end of this story time, comment get Bree out the sunken place. I don't know, that might be the one today. Don't go to the light, something, whatever you feel is right for this video, comment below. And if you have a similar experience, please share it with us in the comments below, but no pressure, because this is not a cult. All right, love you guys. Peace out, gang, and I will see you in the next video.
Need a little bit of trust from you, or we can let the guns